Hannibal from the Hannibal TV here with the British Bulldog Jr., Davey Boy Smith Jr., also known as Harry Smith, who is actually the winner of the very first Billy Robinson Catch Wrestling Classic. So to start this off, do you want to tell us a bit about this prestigious medal you won recently?
Yeah, certainly. You know, this was a really huge honor. You know, Billy Robinson being my head coach and almost like a father figure to me. This really meant the world to me to be able to compete and win this. And you know, it was actually with the rule settings. This was the hardest tournament I've ever done because they were all 5-minute rounds and best 2 out of 3 falls for either pinfall, and not just for a pin for a 1, but it was 1, 2, 3. And all submission holds were legal, so reaping of the knee, any heel hooks, small joint manipulations, fingers, finger ripping. Luckily, everybody was pretty good, you know, sportsmanship there, so we didn't run into that. But it was tough, and you know, like what Billy had taught me years ago, he said that like a lot of these guys nowadays, and I'm guilty of it myself, having a lot of power for the first 5 minutes to take a guy down, and then, you know, but that power, it wears off after 5 minutes. And he said that back in the old catch rules, which was what the tournament was, you had to wrestle to either a pinfall or a submission, best 2 out of 3 falls. So there's no judging, there's no points, and it really puts you into a totally different element because you know, say if you're used to doing jiu-jitsu and all of a sudden you're in a half guard and you're on your back and you're starting to get counted, you have to scramble and fight like hell to get out of that. And the only 2 times when you should use power is when you're going to be finishing a submission, or if you've gotten yourself in a jam and you need to explode to pop up. So that was great. It was a really fun experience because I got to train with Josh Barnett before it, and I had I'm recovering now, but I have a pulled groin. And I still competed and won, which was awesome. And then going to the tournament, when me, Josh, Victor Henry, and another one of his students, we got so delayed in that Philadelphia airport, pardon my language, is the total shits. We landed at like 2 in the morning. By the time we finally got into New Jersey, it was 8:30 in the morning, and I had to be there at 9 a.m. for weigh-in. So that being said, you know, you either compete or you don't compete, or you make excuses or you make things happen. So I was glad I won. Watching it back, you know, the second match has aired now on Facebook and stuff. My first match hasn't aired, so it was tough because, man, you're doing 15 minutes of live wrestling where you're trying to stay off your back. You know, there's a lot of action, and right afterwards, my forearm grip was just like, it was really like tight, you know. And it was a great experience. I want to do more, and next time I do one, I'm going to be a lot more loose and relaxed and be more elusive rather than being so stiff. And I wasn't able to shoot in on anybody because of this groin injury, so you know, it's hard for me to sprawl. So like I said, it was awesome. Thanks to Joel and Jake Shannon for putting it together. And like I said, hopefully there's going to be more of these to come. And I'm really looking forward to the future, and I really want to keep catch wrestling alive.
And of course, we are going to be posting that match on the Hannibal TV. Our commentator has been a little slow doing the commentary for that, but hopefully by the time this interview airs, we'll be able to link it with the interview. And I would actually love for you to have a catch wrestling match in Great North Wrestling in the future if we could work that out. Absolutely. I would definitely be up for that, Devin. If we could find a good opponent, and I would definitely do it. You know, it's the thing that I like about catch submission wrestling is that it gives the wrestlers a chance also, and that's something to watch out for because there's a lot of good wrestlers that will pin you, and yeah, so to be able to be good in both Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling is an awesome thing. So if you could ever put it together, that would be great. Like I said, I want to keep catch wrestling alive. So. And Billy Robinson, I read a quote of him saying the best wrestler that could do the best in MMA right now would be you. He actually quoted that before he passed away. Yes. Do you think you're ever going to fight in MMA in Bellator or UFC or any of these companies? Yes, that's my current goal right now. I'm actually, with the exception of this groin injury,
I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break from independent shows, aside from wrestling, aside from TVs. I did some MLW recently, which was really awesome, in World of Sport. But, you know, I'm sure you know, Devin, that traveling sometimes to a lot of these independent shows is harder sometimes than the actual wrestling, and flying out of Calgary and flying all the way to the East Coast here. And it's been kind of interfering with my training. You know, it's hard when you're jet lagged and you're tired. So I'm kind of balancing things out and wanting to focus more on my training for MMA to prepare for that. I would need some more time. I'm actually spending more time out in LA training with Josh Barnett. And Josh is, he's awesome. I mean, not only as a fighter, but as a coach and as a mentor to me, and almost like a bigger brother to me. And he wants to work with me, and we need to work on things before I step in the cage. But that's right now, that's where the goal is to fight. And there's another big guy up in Los Angeles training with us named Osuna, and he's an Egyptian sumo wrestler, and he was very famous in Japan. He actually beat 3 Yokozunas, and he's out there training, and he's debuting in Ryzen at the end of September. So him and I sparring together, actually he was the one that hurt my groin, but him and I sparring and training together is a really good experience for both of us, and we're both growing. So whether it's in Ryzen or Pancrase, or if it's in Bellator, the direction right now for me is to compete more and to fight.
And what people don't understand also about you is you have a good position with New Japan. You've been in WWE.
Yes.
You have a name. So you have to really be extremely prepared for your fight, because you don't want to look like CM Punk out there. You never would. You have a great history of fighting, but someone's going to try and fight you and make a name for themselves.
Yes.
So it's very important that you're at the top of your game when you fight.
Yes, absolutely, 100% prepared. And like I said, you know, competing on, you know, 3 hours sleep and with the pulled groin and stuff like that, it was great experience for me, because like Josh said, he said, welcome to fighting and competing. You know, that's it's kind of an unforgiving sport, and people don't really give a shit about you, you know, and they're out there to beat you. So you have to be have that same attitude towards them, and you know, hold no mercy. And when you step in the cage and lock the doors, you know, you either fight or you don't. And also, like you were mentioning about CM Punk, like me having a big name, I feel that I would have a lot more skills than him. But I think that he would still be able to come back to pro wrestling and do fine. And I give my hat off to Punk. You know, he went out there, he fought, he tried. He's just not a fighter, and he doesn't have skills. That's all that it is to it.
Right, and I'm certainly not saying you don't have skills. I'm just saying that.
Oh yeah.
You have you certainly have a name.
And that's part of the problem too. Is with New Japan is that they're a little bit cautious with giving people time off to prepare for fights, and that's the thing that people don't realize, is that I have a full-time kind of contract with New Japan, and you know, to prepare for a fight, if I take 3 months off to train and then I lose, you know, in Japan, they take things like MMA more, it's different over there. They consider pro wrestling and MMA kind of the same over there. So if you lose, you don't want to do that, because your name will go down. So that's, you know, that's a thing to watch out for. And New Japan is right now for me the top priority. So I have to work with them and be careful about, you know, because they're the main priority, you know. So that's exactly what you were saying.
And I saw that you were actually at Daniel Cormier's last fight when Brock Lesnar came in at the end, and we were already aware, of course, that Brock is going to be fighting him for the heavyweight title, I guess, on the next, or I guess in January, it's looking like. What's your opinion of Brock going back into MMA?
I think that, hey, you know what? It's good for UFC and it's good for WWE. I think that it's going to draw a huge amount of money no matter what happens. I mean, even if it's a 30-second fight. Not that it would be. I think that, you know what? It's great. I think that it's great for WWE. It's great for pro wrestling. I think it'll be interesting. I want to side with Cormier taking the win on that. That's just my opinion. He's got the experience. And I think that if it's dragged into later rounds, that fatigue and conditioning might become a factor for Brock. And Cormier is a high-level wrestler as well, and I think I'm looking forward to it. I think that's great. And you know, we were talking earlier about people getting heat, and when Brock came out there and he pushed him, I mean, the heat from that was just unbelievable. And you could just feel the intensity and the atmosphere in the crowd, and that's not Brock's a great fighter, but I mean, pro wrestling wise, he knows how to be a heel. People should watch him. I mean, you don't want to have people cheering for you. You either be a heel, and if you're going to be a heel, be a heel.
And I think actually MMA has become what wrestling used to become, because there are no real true heels in wrestling anymore. Yeah. The promos are actually more entertaining overall in MMA. What do you think about that kind of theory, that they're really taking the old school wrestling kind of mentality as far as promotion goes? Absolutely.
And Dana White's smart to do that, because like I said, pro wrestling, MMA, people want to, like we were talking last time, people want to argue and say, oh, pro wrestling, it's a soap opera, and I like to watch the real stuff. Oh yeah, well, I watched Tito Ortiz getting so-and-so's face, and that was awesome. I was going, well, you know what? Because guys like him, they're smart. They know how to draw audiences in. They know how to get fans' attention. Conor McGregor, he's a genius. I mean, whether or not he's actually doing stuff because he feels that way, or if he's just doing it to get heat. But either way, I mean, look at what he's getting paid compared to other people. So people, as human beings, they want to see athletics and they want to see guys getting punched, but they want to see passion, and they want to see they want to see rivals, and they want to see feuds, and they want to see storylines. And UFC, they're doing great with it, and a lot of UFC guys are keeping their promos more to the point, and they are actually being heels than some of the guys now, because they know how to be heels and they don't want to get cheered.
Now for New Japan, they are expanding into the United States. They've had numerous successful events now, I believe. Do you think that that's going to affect the relationship with Ring of Honor eventually?
No, well, as far as them working together, is that what you're...
Yeah, because it's almost going to be possibly competition in some ways.
I want to say that I think that they're going to try to work together more than competition, but I don't know. And in that case, if they are going to compete, I mean, Ring of Honor is going to lose that one, because New Japan's, they just have more money. It's like trying to compete with WWE or something. I think that they could work together. I think that Ring of Honor is good because it gets help from New Japan, and I was on the Long Beach, Walter Pyramid show in Long Beach. It was great. They sold out. I mean, they had a great show. I wasn't on the last one, unfortunately, or the last one's coming up, or the next one coming up. But New Japan's hey, they're expanding. They just got a new CEO, and he's apparently wanting to expand more into Europe and into Africa and all kinds of places with their TV. So,
do you think there's any chance that you're going to be on the big Madison Square Garden show WrestleMania weekend?
I certainly hope so. I hope so. With my WWE experiences, two of my best experiences were actually wrestling in Madison Square Garden. And I was growing up as watching the Madison Square Garden network, and I would always get pumped, I'm sure you would, watching the guys do the entrances. They would come right before the blue curtain, and it was awesome. I got to wrestle my best friend Tyson Kidd, TJ Wilson. We opened one house show in Madison Square Garden. We stole the show, in my opinion. And then for the other experience was Bret Hart Appreciation Night. So it was me, TJ, and Bret versus the Nexus in a 6-man. So that was it was awesome being in a natural match with Bret and MSG. So I hope to go back there, and I hope it'll be a good experience again.
Now you saw Ted Hart, I guess, a couple weeks ago. You got the tour of his house at the Hannibal TV also got. He's doing pretty well. Do you want to just talk about how Ted's doing these days?
Yeah, I mean, his house was fun. It's interesting. Ted is a character. I was actually talking with my mom earlier, because we were kind of laughing or joking about Ted, but he's always up to something. But I remember when we were kids, I don't know, do you remember Bulldog Bob Brown at all?
Yes.
Yeah, so I remember when I was younger, Ted had me fooled. I mean, I was a really young kid, like 4 or 5, and he told me that Bulldog Bob Brown was the actual coach of Davey Boy and Dynamite Kid, and he said that he was the original Bulldog, and that's how he had the name Bulldog Bob Brown. And then I was going, no, that can't be right, you know, Ted. And Ted's going, no, man, you know, Bulldog Bob Brown, actually, Grampy's pretty scared of him. I heard that he used to, you know, he could give Grampy maybe a run for his money on the mat. And he goes, I heard that Bulldog Bob Brown's really crazy, and you know, Davey and Dynamite are kind of scared of him, and he can do moonsaults and the splits and stuff like that. And you know, and Ted has a way of kind of not manipulating people, but he can make you believe almost anything. And then I was almost thinking about it, and he goes, don't even ask Davey about it. He'll be really mad if he asks me about it, you know. And then I think I asked my mom or my dad about it, and then they just shook their head and told me not to listen to Ted on anything. But just, it was just funny. But even just the visual of Bulldog Bob Brown doing the splits like Rob Van Dam, or him doing moonsaults, or stretching Stu, or Davey and Dynamite giving him a wide berth, and being sort of scared of him being the original Bulldog. But yeah, Ted is he's a character. He's incredibly talented. I hope that he can keep himself in check.
Something interesting I learned about Ted when I was with him is his favorite wrestling manager is actually Colonel Robert Parker.
Oh yes, yeah, I've heard that as well. I got to meet Colonel Rob Parker last week in MLW, and after the show, me and Ted, we had a good laugh. We watched when Colonel Rob Parker and Sherry, when they got together after Harlem Heat lost to Bunkhouse Buck and Dirty Dick Slater. But Ted's really funny. You know, there's that, and then there's a video of there's a little mouse, and he kills a scorpion, and it's called and he kills a big centipede. And then this little mouse, he starts howling at the moon afterwards, and he's so proud of his victory. And Ted told me about it, and like I said, sometimes you think that Ted's full of it, and then I watched it, I couldn't believe it. And man, I was laughing so hard, I mean, my stomach was hurting, you know. It's just, he's got a really unusual sense of humor, I guess, like me. And but he's a really talented person. But that was funny you brought that up, yeah.
And last WrestleMania weekend, I don't know if you want to address this, there was, you actually made the most news of anyone at WrestleCon, because I guess there was some type of confrontation with you and Jake the Snake Roberts. Do you want to shed some light on that? I understand everything's good now. But.
Oh yeah, everything's good now. I got no problems with Jake, first and foremost. We buried the hatchet, and I talked to him, and he dropped whatever charges he had. I actually, I got no problem with Jake. I like him. I respect that he's kind of turned his life around with things, and he's cleaned himself up. My more issue was with these jabroni wannabe websites that were making making a thunder out of a fart, I should say. And nothing was really going to happen. I had the altercation with Jake because he had made a podcast with Roddy Piper before. And I'd spoken to Roddy before he passed away, and he cried on the phone to me, we had an emotional conversation about it, and he apologized, and they were both, I believe, under the influence of some stuff, and they did it. But it was that, and then I had said something to Jake on Twitter about him bashing my father in these interviews because my dad's not around anymore. And then I kept hearing about him talking about Davey, and it's like, why are you talking about Davey now? He's passed away. He's not here to defend himself. If you had a problem with him, why the fuck didn't you talk to him back in '96 when you were working in WWF? And a guy in England told me that he was trying to talk to Jake about his current sobriety and his path with that, and then he said that he just turned the whole interview into burying Davey, and he told me that he pretty much said that Davey was like Charles Manson. And I was so offended, and he said that he wasn't even going to put the interview up. He buried him so bad. So I was mad about that. So I confronted Jake about it, and he didn't want to apologize, and he just kind of threw his arms up like, that's the way it is, kid. And I wanted to talk to him diplomatically, and he didn't. And then I was prepared to fight him, and he didn't want to fight me, but he wanted to mouth off to me. So yeah, then he said something like, you know, fuck you, fuck your dad, and or, you know, he said something about my dad, and I saw red there. And anybody that is would be in my boots would have done the same thing. So I just threw coffee at him, and then his daughter was the one that attacked me, and she got mad, and she called the cops, but the cops came, and then I left because she was killing my merchandise sales, and I had a show to do for Byron Wolcott, and Tommy Dreamer told them to come and talk to me at the show later on that night for Hardcore Heaven. Nobody came and talked to me, so that this BS that they were looking for me and I was on the run or something was a bunch of bullshit, and that was all these jabroni websites wanting to get some hits and, like I said, make a thunder out of a fart. And unless the only person that anybody should really listen to is Dave Meltzer with the Wrestling Observer, and personally, all these other places are, like the National Enquirer. But in a long story short, I talked to Jake, and we had a good conversation, and he apologized, and he said he wasn't going to bring up Davey's name anymore in interviews, and he was very cool, He said that he understood where I was coming from because of his father, Grizzly Smith, being in the business, and he said he didn't want me to get in trouble for this, and he asked for me to apologize publicly, and I'm a man of my word, and I did it. And if I saw Jake here today, I'd shake his hand, and we're all good. So we're all human. Everybody makes mistakes. We all have tempers that flare sometimes. And for me, with my father, it's a touchy subject, and I'm sure that it would be the same thing for you if it was somebody talking about your father. And another thing is that you got to really stand up for yourself in life, because people really will step on you, and they'll, if they can feel like they can step on you or get ahead or bully you, and you got to step up, and you got to stand up for yourself and stand up for your family. And even if you lose in a battle, or if you lose in a fight defending yourself or defending your family, you're defending your honor, and that's what I was doing. So.
And that person might not mess with you again, just knowing that they're going to have to fight you or go through a confrontation.
And if they do it, and if they do beat me, then they should be a UFC heavyweight champion, because I'm not the toughest guy in the world maybe, but I would say I'm quite a handful.
Yes, you've been definitely training for probably well over a decade now by some of the best fighters in the world. When
we were just going back to the talking about submission wrestling and catch wrestling, training with Josh has been such an awesome experience. Pro wrestling is real. He was showing me, there's a way to tap people out with a headlock, and you just have to know where the right spot is and where to put it on the head. And, I think that catch wrestling is going to come back with a lot of those submission holds and a lot of the forgotten art of it. So just bringing back that up, but headlocks are real. They can. Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of these people with their dick grabbing and magical bombs that go off and putting dildos in each other's tights and kicking the tights, they're kind of not doing pro wrestling any justice, so it's hard to stand up for it in some ways, but there's definitely real wrestlers like yourself out there that can definitely take care of themselves against almost anybody. Yeah,
absolutely. And, when you're bringing that up, I'm not a fan of it. I think that it's kind of a phase that's going to fade out. I hope to God it does. It's silly, it's goofy, I like if it's funny comedy wrestling, or it can be good, but when it's just silly and goofy, like stuff like that, it's not doing anybody any favors, and it's not doing the business any favors. And like you said, it is hard to stand up for the wrestling business sometimes when people are doing goofy stuff like that, but they should also have a degree of some degree of kayfabe also, you know what I mean? And people, they want to be, they pay their hard-earned money because they want to see a show and they want to see action, but they also want to see feuds, and they got to keep kayfabe alive better with that.
Yeah, I saw something with Macaulay Culkin around Christmas time that I'm sure you saw, and it was just hard. I saw the number of views on it, and it's just like, man, this is sad in some ways. But you told me a while ago to ask you next time I talk to you on camera about Scott Hall, some conversation you had with Scott Hall.
Well, no, that was all leading back to the Jake thing, was because I wanted to talk to Scott because it was, and Scott and I are cool too, and my conversation with Scott went a lot better than the conversation with Jake did, but he had made some stupid comment on Twitter. Of course, I don't know if he was under the influence or something, or he was drunk, I don't know, but that Davey and Lex Luger were jobbers, and then I think my mom had made a post or like something like on Twitter, and then, like I said, these jabronis on these mark websites, they posted, oh, you know, Diana Hart and Scott Hall, they, you know, have words on Twitter and blah, blah, blah. So I messaged Scott about it, and then the message, when I, like a private message, because I follow him, and then it said that the message couldn't be delivered. So I don't know if he muted me or he blocked me, but I just said, hey, what's up, man? And then I talked to him, and then he explained to me that he said that him and Davey, they used to rib each other, and you know, he would say, oh, you know, Davey, you'd be nothing without Lex, because, you know, you're a jobber. And then he'd go, oh, you know, Razor, you'd be nothing without the kid. You need the kid, because, you know, you're a jobber. And they'd go back and forth. And I said, okay, that's cool, man. Just if you could have just said that in a message, I would have said, all right. But I just told him not to let that fucking happen again, and we shook hands, and that's it.
Now, one thing I was really happy to see is the World of Sports TV show got picked up on a major network. Yes. You want to tell us about that? You're the big star of it, which I was great. It's about time that somebody gave you a push as a top star. Absolutely. I am really, really excited about it. You know, my phone has been, I've put it on silent now, but it's been buzzing because I guess the episode just aired. You know, I'm thrilled and excited about it. I'm actually getting some new gear made from a guy in Mexico with the UK flag and a bunch of stuff for hopefully the next series to come up. The first show I wrestled Will Ospreay, and we had a tremendous match. I hope that it turns out good on watching it back, because sometimes I'm a little bit of a stickler when I watch my stuff. You know what? That was where my dad and Dynamite Kid, where they first started, and my sensei Satoru Sayama, the original Tiger Mask, he first started in World of Sport. So I think that it's coming up great, and you know, I think WWE is a little bit scared of World of Sport. You know, they've been trying to hire a bunch of guys from there, and for their UK, whatever they got, their junior heavyweight tournaments or whatever, and which is a good sign, because you know, if WWE's scared, and they're really wanting to expand in the UK market, and being able to go out there and honor my dad, and finally, I feel, get my justice and do as a singles wrestler, and being pushed, and over there is tremendous. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that the ratings just go through the roof, and it'll be an awesome experience. The production, I don't know if you have seen it yet, it's really great. And sometimes a lot of these independent companies, they're awesome, but the production isn't there. And that's kind of a hard thing for fans, the average fan, to watch, where they go, well, I'm not, well, okay, I'm going to turn on this Discovery Channel instead of this, because it doesn't look like anything. So man, I'm really pumped about it. I'm excited about it. So, are we going to see the braids come on you one day? Would you like to see it? I would. I would love to see it. People have asked me. I would like to go with the braids. The problem is, when I've tried to grow out my hair, and Davey, he had a really nice, like a curly, like a wavy kind of hair. And when I tried to grow mine out, it was, you know, when you get to that middle phase where it's kind of, and I just woke up. I woke up a few mornings in Japan early in the morning, tired. And I looked at myself in the mirror. I thought I looked like Bill Murray. So I cut it. So I cut my hair. I just said, no, this isn't. But I would maybe go with the braids if for that look. But my actual normal hair, when I grow it out, it looks. It just doesn't fit me. But the braids, you know, if few people have asked me about it, I would like to try it. And actually, if it looks good, I would sport it. I would debut it for the next World of Sport for sure. What would Dynamite Kid say if he saw you with the braids? Oh, jeez. In his accent. Oh, man. I think he would just look and say, like, fucking hell. You know, he'd say something like that. I actually just saw Dynamite a couple months ago in England, and I don't want to, hopefully his family will be there. I think that they were glad that I saw him, but hopefully they're not hurt by it, but he's in really bad shape. So for yeah, sorry, it's not good. I'm sorry to hear that. I'll just ask you this on a funny note. I'm not saying this to disparage Dynamite, but I know you took a picture with Jacques Rougeau a while ago, and Jacques Rougeau said a number of times that he thinks if he sees Dynamite again, they could shake hands and say, let's let bygones become bygones. Would that ever happen? I doubt it. You know, just because when is Jacques going to be in the UK, and Dynamite can't travel? But you know, Jacques he's a great guy. Him and Raymond, they're great guys. You know, it was funny. We were placed together for a signing in New York,
And I think Rob Feinstein said, oh, it's funny coincidence, you guys are standing next to each other and signing autographs. And like going back to any stuff with Jake, any stuff that happened with Jacques and Dynamite, or Raymond and Dynamite, they both told me that they really liked Davey, but anybody even like a Sean Stasiak or anybody that had problems with Davey in the past, they don't bring up his name, or they don't tarnish his name, or they don't badmouth him. If they're asked, they just keep it kind of short. But I just have a problem when people are constantly burying somebody that's not able to be here to defend himself. So I'm not here to fight anybody that has something bad to say about Davey or Dynamite. It's just when they keep doing it on a regular basis, like, talk about something else. So, but yeah, Jacques and Raymond, they're great guys. I don't think that would ever happen, but I would like to see it happen. I think Jacques would want to do it, but knowing Dynamite and the way his attitude is, he's a really stubborn guy. I don't think he would shake Jacques' hand. He wouldn't do it. No way.
I guess you were just a baby at that time, but it seems like that's something that would have, even though Davey wasn't the one attacked, that would probably really have bothered them at the time. And
yeah.
So did he ever tell you why they didn't get retribution?
Well, it was more on Dynamite than it was so on Davey, and then I think maybe Dynamite was maybe planning something the night of the Survivor Series, but they got eliminated from the Battle Royal. And that was good to see that, Davey did the spot with Jacques where he gave him the press slam, and they were professional, because I think Jacques was maybe scared that Davey was going to throw him on his head, and he just no-sold it when they went over it. And Davey said he had no intentions of, he was always a professional and wasn't going to do anything. But I know that was the beginning of the end, unfortunately, for Dynamite. I don't think he ever recovered mentally from that. And I don't know why he wouldn't have, because knowing what he was like, but, or if he was planning something, he probably was, just knowing what, he's kind of a spiteful person. But why he didn't, I don't know.
Now, just to wind it down here, last time you told us the story, I asked you one of your favorite stories about Davey, and you told us the SummerSlam story. I was wondering if you could share another one, because I know we have a lot of Davey Boy Smith fans on this channel. Yeah,
for sure. Being here for the Owen Hart Hall of Fame and everything, me and my mom, we were laughing, and Bruce talking about Davey and Owen ribs. And, there was a whole bunch of times, and Davey told me he'd be driving in a car with Owen, and they'd be maybe going through like a playground zone or something, and there would be like a really old man on a walker or something crossing the street, and they'd stop and they'd wait for him, and then Owen would be in the passenger side, and then he would honk on the horn really loud and hold it, and then he'd let go and then look away and kind of look at Davey, and then the old man would kind of look at Davey, and I think he said one guy gave him the finger and went up to his car and started mouthing off, and he goes, "Oh, you fucking asshole, Owen." And Davey was such a funny guy, I mean, he had such a great personality in and outside the ring. And like, I remember when I was a little kid and I was playing soccer, and I had a little altercation with some other kid, and I probably would have beaten him up, but we kind of argued and mouthed off, and then Davey, I was kind of fired up about it afterwards, and then Davey goes, "Oh, Harry, don't worry, I would have pulled him off you if he got on top of you, so don't worry." And I was going, "No, Davey, I would have, as I was doing amateur wrestling at the time, he goes, "Oh, I don't know, Harry, he's a pretty big kid." But he knew how to really wind you up like that. And we were talking about some other Owen stories too, and I guess he used to travel with Steve Blackman in the car, and then they'd be driving somewhere, and then they'd see a bunch of fans, and Owen would convince Steve. He goes, "Steve, put on the Blue Blazer mask. It's my gimmick," because Owen was doing that. And then Steve would kind of argue, and and then he would finally put it on, and then you could see his goatee through the mask. And he said Owen would always get him with that every single time. But there were so many great funny rib stories with those guys. I remember we were on vacation in Spain in the summer of 1998, and this hotel was really lousy. They were trying to kick us out early, and then the guy said that we were making too much noise, and then Davey had an argument with the hotel manager, and then right before we left, I want to say we had to pay in cash too. There was no cards, so he paid in cash. and Davey showed me a whole bunch of tricks with putting a bunch of ketchup in the light bulbs, so when it would light up, it would explode, and there would be a bunch of ketchup that would fall down. And he did a whole bunch of stuff. I think he clogged up the drain and then left the water running, so it would all flood the whole room. And he did I think TJ would have remembered. He would have done a whole bunch of stuff. And I think we had lost one of our keys, and the guy was trying to charge Davey, I can't remember how many Mercedes it was at the time, for a new set of keys, and it was like, but he definitely knew. Actually, someone had told me that Davey had pulled a rib on it, but they didn't tell me on who it was in WCW, that he managed to urinate in a cup, and then he drew it out with a syringe, and then he squeezed the syringe with the urine into a guy's toothpaste. So when they were brushing their teeth, they were brushing their teeth.
Was it PN News?
No, it wouldn't have been him, because I think it was maybe 93, or yeah, it was not. So PN News was gone by that point. But man, Davey, he knew that. And then I remember one time he did to somebody's car. He stuck a bunch of toothpicks in the keyhole, because it was one of those old school, and then inside of the key ignition he put a bunch of gum and stuck it in there, so that when they tried to put the key in, they couldn't with the gum. And I don't know whatever happened, if they had to get a locksmith or someone to do it, but so that's a pointer if anybody wants to mess with somebody's stuff. And how Davey came up with some of this stuff, I don't know, but him and Owen were great ribbers. I know you asked me about wrestling stories, but some of the outside stuff is really funny.
Well, and of course, Owen's getting inducted into the George Tragos Lose Fez Hall of Fame here tonight. That's why you're here.
Yes.
Want to tell us about your opinion of finally Owen's going into a Hall of Fame, and this is one of the most prestigious Hall of Fames, if not the most. Oh,
you know, it's absolutely great. I was just telling you last night, I was watching Owen's promo that he did with Vince, and there's so many great memories that I even forgot. I forgot all about that promo. And but anyway, to get to the point, just for him to be honored is such a great thing, because unfortunately with Martha, he's never going to go to the WWE Hall of Fame unless you know, unless she would. It's sad to say, unless she passed away or something like that, but she's not, as long as she's living, she's not going to let that happen, which is a shame, because I think that a lot of fans want to see that, and for the amount of smiles he put on people's faces over the years, I think it's unfair that he's not. But at the same time, I understand Martha's position, and if she feels that right, that she doesn't want him in the Hall of Fame, you have to respect what she's, because she was his wife. But everybody had lost Owen, and it was a tragic loss to everybody, not just her. But for him to be inducted here is a really great thing. I actually took a flight just here from New Jersey the other day up here, and it's great to catch up with some of the family as well. And Owen is one of my favorite wrestlers. You know, he was just effortlessly smooth in the ring, and it's good to see him. Awesome to see him being inducted here. And I wish he was here. And you know, I wish he was around today, if he was in his prime, still wrestling in Japan. And you know, it's too bad that, you know, when he passed away, I think that when Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko and those guys came to WWE, I think that those would have been awesome matches as well. And it probably would have given him, probably would have lit a fire under him again to start being more motivated to, not that he was ever having bad matches or anything, but I know towards the end he was kind of tired of the business, and I think that would have been awesome to see. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. But Owen's awesome. I'm so glad to be here for the Hall of Fame. I'm really impressed with this whole setup here, and looking forward to hopefully meeting Danny Hodge and Dan Gable too. Unfortunately, I got the unfortunate news Dan Gable's away this weekend, because I was looking forward to it too. That's okay. Well, I'll be here next year then. Yeah, no, that's great. I was actually just reading their book. I've not really gotten a chance to meet Danny Hodge, but I'm looking forward to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that handshake's like. Have you felt it? Yeah, he was actually giving me some pointers a couple of years ago when I was here, and he still has strength in his hands. Oh, I believe it. Well, I'm just curious, what does he do for strengthening? I should have asked him that. Someone told me that every day he would grab a newspaper and then he crumpled. Oh yes, really yes. With every single page, and then he said he'd just do that over. And then of course, you know, wrestling and doing the the ropes and stuff here. Grip strength is so important, you know. But actually, going back to when we're talking about Teddy Hart, he's got quite a powerful grip on him. Really strong. Yeah, very talented with that too.
So where can people learn more about the world of sports, and where can they follow you on social media?
Absolutely. Follow me on Davey Smith Jr. That's on Instagram and Twitter. World of Sport Wrestling, I believe, is WOS Wrestling on Twitter. And I believe it should be airing on YouTube. I mean, I don't want to say that because I think that they want to have people watch it on TV, but it is on TV. It's not pay-per-view stuff yet. So I hope, not that I'm hoping that someone pirates it and puts it on there, but I do hope that more people are able to see it on there. So they can follow me on that. It's a real pleasure. Thank you very much for all your time, and thank you to Hannibal TV for letting me speak on here. And I really am looking forward to coming back out to Great North Wrestling. I think that there's a lot of great guys. You know, when we were just talking about stuff earlier, one guy who I'm really impressed with lately is PCO, Pierre Carl Ouellet. At his age, I haven't seen too many people work harder than him, and I like his promos. They're different. He's pretty tough. He won some grappling competitions as well. I got a lot of respect for him. He's been around for years, and he tries hard. You know, he's out there. He works hard. I hope that I could work with him.
The only thing I have to say about that is I pinned him numerous times in the last match we had, and he had to resort to hitting me over the head with a garbage can and getting me disqualified. I had to receive stitches after the match.
Oh, is that what that's...
Yeah, so I don't have very much respect for him, but it is impressive at his age that he's still wrestling, and the fans are definitely asking you back. You're one of the most requested wrestlers in Great North Wrestling, but unfortunately you have a tough New Japan schedule, but hopefully before the end of the year we can work something out. But to finish this off, maybe could you do a promo on Carl Ouellet in Owen Hart's voice, a short one to put you on the spot?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of what Owen would say. You know what? We could save it for next time, just because I don't know what Owen would say, because I'm not a very good. I'm not good with impersonations of Owen. But
all right, what would Stu say? What would Stu say?
What would Stu say to Carl? He'd say, "Carl, you're a pretty big salty bastard. Once they put the thread through on you and your tongue starts getting fat and your bloodshot eyes start tearing up, I think that it'll be curtains." Something like that. I think Stu would have said. But yeah, you know, I hopefully we get a chance to. I'm sorry that Carl did that, but you know, that's you're gonna have to get him back. Receipt's always a nice thing, right?